With the price of Brent, Nigeria's crude benchmark touching $96.48 per barrel, the highest level since 2014. The amount paid to subsidize oil by the government may hit $9 billion daily in the coming days. Well, according to reports, the price of Brent crude, which rose to $96.48 per barrel as at Monday the 14th of February 2021, recorded a significant rise from the $89 per barrel which crude oil was trading at the beginning of the month, indicating that oil subsidy payment, which is subject to controversy in Nigeria, is about to triple in the coming weeks if nothing is done about this, and if the crude oil production level still remains low. Well, it will be recalled that in November and October 2021, petrol subsidy payments stood at about 131.4 billion naira and 163 billion naira respectively, a development that made the current administration decide to take the bull by the horn to begin deregulation of the downstream sector, a move that was later cancelled through the 18-month extension of the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act. As price of oil continues to rise, reaching close to $100 per barrel. Analysts have the view that unless Nigeria is able to produce more oil, it won't come as a surprise if a new request is sent to the National Assembly for more loans, despite all other oil-producing countries smiling to the bank from sales. Well, I introduced him earlier. He's joining live from our Abuja studios. He's an energy person, Chief Executive Officer of Captree, Mr. Olabode Showumi. Mr. Showumi, it's good to see you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be back online with you.
Yes. First, I'm looking at this and it's so scary. Subsidy to hit 9 billion naira daily because the price of crude is looking good. We should be smiling to the banks at this time, but it's not looking like that for Nigeria. First, how does this come to you?
Well, first of all, it's not exactly that it's not looking like that for Nigeria. And in terms of the income that will come into the government, that's the revenue that comes in from the sale of crude oil, there will be increase, there's no doubt. Ordinarily, that increase should translate to increase in revenue for expenditure in government, but that becomes a totally different issue. That's a finance issue. That becomes something between how the federation account is measured, how the sales is measured, and how it's been transferred within the states. More specifically, the one that concerns us, which is the issue of the price of crude oil, the price of the finished product. And I think basically that speaks to other things. But at the moment, with respect to the question that you asked, definitely it is an increase in revenue for the nation.
That's a good one. And we're even thinking about it hitting about $100 very soon if that happens. So let me ask, with the report I saw, does it mean that subsidy, which has been a subject of controversy, might triple in the coming weeks?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
Yes, I said, does it mean that subsidy that has been a subject of controversy will triple in few weeks if we continue with this hike in the price of crude?
Well, I think for subsidy, with respect to its fundamentals, has a peculiar issue with respect to the Nigerian situation. In the first place, why do you even have subsidies? Subsidy has its roots in the period before the Industrial Revolution. That was the mercantile period where there were a lot of merchants and people bringing things from other countries and all that. But what was able to hinder and eliminate that, the concept of subsidy itself, was industrialization and capitalism. However, you cannot leave the economy itself to the pure forces of capitalism, otherwise the economy can collapse. Hence the concept of subsidy. But unfortunately, there needs to be a balancing act between what is actually going for subsidy and what the nation can afford. As it is today, there is the residual, or should I say the downstream aspect of the industry is not particularly industrialized. So we're talking about the refineries, we're talking about the supply chain that goes with it. It is the industrialization of those things and the availability of sufficient capacity or sufficient amounts of refineries to provide for what we need that ultimately will eliminate subsidies. However, on the part of government, it is incumbent upon them to make it easy for people to follow them by making the process of computation of subsidies more transparent and less subject to speculation and innuendos.
Pretty transparent. Yes, I want to hold on to that word because it's important, especially when you deal in the oil and gas industry. And that takes me to level of consumption, daily consumption. You are a professional and player in this industry. What's your reaction to all of these figures? Many say that we are just feeding other neighboring countries with PMS and subsidizing the PMS that they get.
Well, there's nothing about the Nigerian situation that is peculiar to us. In Venezuela, they have the same situation. The neighboring countries around Venezuela do tap in a lot from the finished products that are in there. The same thing applies to other places as well, apart from those that are in Europe, like Russia, maybe Norway. For a number of places, the issue is this basic economics is about demand and supply. Because these nations do not have finished petroleum products. Even if we make it 1,000 naira per liter, they will rise it slightly higher, they will buy. The only difference is that they will not buy as much as they will buy if it is at the current price. So the idea, the concept, the thinking that if you are going to cut off the borders, that is going to stop smuggling or is going to stop petroleum products getting into the neighboring countries is a phantom. It's not going to happen. I mean, the United States with the FBI and the CIA and the Coast Guards and whatever they have, they still cannot battle illegal crude. They cannot battle illegal diamonds. They cannot battle illegal drugs. Those are fundamentals to human nature. Rather than fighting an uphill task, why don't we get our fundamentals right, get our supply chain right, get the needs met? And of course, there will be a few bleeding here and there. But at the end of the day, once we get our own fundamentals right, it will not matter.
Issues around OPEX quota is something that I also want you to talk about. In January, according to figures we pumped about 1.46 million barrels. That's what we were able to do. I think that was on daily target, and the target is 1.68 million liters per day. Now, million barrels, I beg your pardon, per day. What could be responsible for this shortfall? We continue to have this. We're not meeting up with the quota.
Well, there's no one reason that is responsible for shortfall at any point in time. There are multiple factors, but until those who are actually doing the drilling tell us the exact reasons, we will not know what actually happened. But having said that, there are a number of issues over time in the past, or should I say in the recent past, that have been responsible for what could be shortfall. Well, one could be investment capacity, in which case maybe there are certain wells that have not reached production as a result of maybe the COVID period. There could be disruption in the supply chain services itself, which could be as a result of militants and the related. I mean, there could just be decisions to cut it down based on interactions between the regulators and the operators. So there are a number of factors that could hinder it. The good news is that all these factors are human factors. They are factors that can be controlled and decided by human beings. So what that means is that once the stakeholders start talking, and it is decided amongst everyone that the production should go up, then definitely the production will go up. So yeah, I don't that as a.
Hello, Mr. Shomi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Now, yes, I have not been able to get your views with regards to the adulterated or contaminated fuel that put us in what we are at the moment, still having queues, though quite subsiding, but I would like your reaction to that. What do you think really went wrong, and what do you think can be done so that we don't have a recurrence of this kind of ugly incident?
Well, unless an investigation is done, you can only speculate. And there will be no wisdom in speculating where we'll be finger pointing to issues that will be affecting people's careers and people's jobs. But I think what is perhaps more important is that there should be set up checks and balances that will ensure that these things do not happen. The first thing is the organizations that are responsible for standards. The fuel were supposed to have been tested by certain people. Some people should answer questions there. I mean, people don't necessarily have to be fired, but people should be made to answer questions. There are those who are responsible for the importation and those who are responsible for signing off. People should be made to answer questions. So there are gaps within the whole process that one way or the other, either by incident, either by omission or commission, those who were responsible for checking, for safeguarding the doors were bypassed. It is those processes that need to be checked and double-checked so that next time it doesn't happen. Because in reality, if the fuel had passed through the gamut of the checks and balances that existed, and those who were responsible for guarding these things had done their job, there's no way it will have happened. So it's a case where there should be some kind of investigation of the whole chain so that what really happened can be known. And the fact that it is known, we also put checks and balances on those coming further so that if there's a tendency to be lax, they will not be lax anymore because they believe there will be consequences. And if it was on purpose as well, once the information becomes public, whenever somebody else will be thinking of doing something like that, there will be something there will be a deterrent that will stop them from doing those things. Otherwise, we are setting a dangerous precedent in which other people who have power, who have capacity, and who have money may be tempted to take this kind of route. And it's a new law. It should not be something that should be encouraged.
Great stuff there from you, Mr. Showme. Mr. Showme, let me now follow up with staying with deregulation, which many analysts are arguing that is the way to go. We see what's happening with aviation fuel now on the high side. Diesel is also on the high side. Kerosene, same. And all of this are being deregulated. Maybe that's the fear. Nigerians believe that if we allow PMS to also be opened up to market forces, we might also face this kind of problems. What do you think?
I think that's where the economist comes in, because first of all, when you leave things to forces of demand and supply, it's not enough to just leave it to the current players. You must make it available to every single kind of player that has interest once they have met certain basic requirements. That is important because you cannot really talk about deregulation without having free entry and free exit. What you now be talking about is some kind of monopolistic opportunity or regional monopoly, so to speak. So when we talk deregulation needs to be done within the obedience to the fundamental principles of capitalism. That is important. The second part is that because this is intricately interwoven with the economy, and a sudden rise in petrol will give inflation effects, there must be checks and balances that needs to be put in place. And we're talking about realistic checks and balances. Otherwise, it has the capacity to topple the government. So this now becomes a socio-political issue. So there's a politics to it, and there's the social aspect to it, and of course the economics of it. The responsibility of balancing the three is the responsibility of government. It's not an easy task, but of course that's why we elected them. So we wish them the best of luck in guiding very, very difficult Nigerians through this time.
The issue of trust comes in here. Mr. Showme, you would agree with me. But let's now talk about the 18 months extension. You've been on this show to talk about the PIA and all of the expectations for the oil and gas industry. How would you react to the extension given? That's also both political and looks kind of economical.
I think for the PIA, the extension is more economics rather than even politics, because with a new law or with anything new, there comes a period where there needs to be made some adjustments. I mean, if you as an employee get into a new organization, you want to first get familiar with the culture of the organization, know the do's and don'ts, know where the power blocks lie, you know, those kind of things. But when a new law is passed, especially a new law for the first time in within half a century, those who are current players want to check the new law clause by clause to ensure they don't run foul of it. Well, I mean, there have been a few aspects of the law where the operators needed more clarification, and where the clarification was not coming in as early as possible and as clear as possible, because even the regulator itself is still trying to get itself balanced up. So it is important to understand that because it is new, all the factors and all the guidance and every issue that needs to move and watch this law is not yet in place. It is for this purpose that the extension was made. So it is in the enlightened interest of Nigeria and the industry that it happens. For me, based on my understanding of the issues, it is actually a fundamentally economic issue and very little politics in it.
Some say there could even be some legal implications to that development. I don't know if you talk on that, but let's see that my worry, or the worry of many Nigerians too, is about the refining capacity. $1.5 billion for the Port Harcourt Refinery. Well, I don't know how far that is going. We expect updates very soon from the NNPC. But looking at that, the focus is on that refinery being worked on somewhere in Lagos here. That's the Dangote Refinery. That's what many are talking about. What is your reaction? What do you think this will be? Would it be a win-win for both Nigerians and, of course, government and the private investors?
I think any additional refining capacity is a win for Nigeria. I mean, that's at the roots of it. Now, the difference in respect to the misgivings and all the other issues that are related with either the Dangote Refinery or any other refinery has to do with the fact that a lot of the issues that surround it, particularly the financials, are opaque. When issues are opaque, you start to give opportunities to rumors and all that. There's a maxim in journalism, which I'm sure you can identify readily with, is that in the absence of facts, rumors subsist. So the fact that certain things with respect to how the licensing of refineries are done are opaque, how the financials, including the investments of government into the NNPC refineries, are opaque, is at the root of why there is a lot of rumors and misgivings about the Dangote Refinery and the related. Incumbent upon governance and incumbent upon government is the responsibility of making these things available in a way, and I'm talking about non-confidential information here, in a way that they can explain to people what is happening. For people who are knowledgeable are easier to lead and more difficult to govern. I mean, more difficult to drive. Easy to lead, more difficult to drive. So government needs people who are educated, who are informed, so that they can be easy to lead. Some of these issues have their issues with respect to industry confidentiality and all that, but that is why the public relations department of all industries exists. The public relations department must look for a way to pass on the confidential and difficult information in simple terms that people can digest, such that governance can be easy. Easier said than done, but it needs to be done.
A good way to leave it there. I've been speaking to the Chief Executive Officer of CAP3, that's Mr. Bode Showumi there, giving us insights into what is expected. A lot of issues in the oil and gas industry. We can go on and on, but thank you so much. This is what time can take today. Mr. Showumi, do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.